What's up, Internet? It's been 2 weeks since we acquired this R1S. We got the cargo bars and the roof box on top. We've been able to test it out, go to a campsite this past weekend for Memorial Day. And the best feature for this R1S continues to be this super awesome, massive frunk. So I don't have all of the gear inside the frunk right now, but we figured out that you can fit two 12-gallon black and yellow totes, as well as some of the loose materials that's in here right now. Sweetest thing is this 25-foot extension cord / power station, because the R1S can put out 1,500 watts. So those two 12-gallon totes, which we're optimizing for this road trip, feature a lot of 120-volt household appliances, air fryer, Instant Pot, NutriBullet blender, you know, all the staples that you would want and need to be able to use on the road with you. And the R1S thus far has been amazing for its use case and for what we've been looking. I still have it right here, right next to the Model Y. Model Y is still my daily driver for the time being. But when they're parked here like this, the R1S is clearly the superior vehicle when it's parked. But then once you get into the vehicle and you actually go out to where you're going, is when things change up a little bit. Tell you guys what's been going on, what my experiences with the R1S have been as a Tesla Model Y owner going into this transition. And I would say overall, the biggest difference for me is that the Model Y, as far as a vehicle driving around, is still superior in all of the ways that matter. And it's primarily because of FSD. It's because of efficiency and just certain small things in the software, the use case. So right here, as we come out of the complex, we'll see that I'll be able to turn FSD on instantly. And this Model Y is essentially a robo-taxi. Like, I'm hands off right now, and the level of confidence that I have in FSD at this point is amazing. So that's the biggest trade-off that you're making by going into the R1S from the Model Y, at least that I'm making, that I think the general user is making. Once you're used to this sort of robotic taxi service, it's kind of hard to give up. That said, the autonomy options in the R1S are satisfactory for the purposes of going on long road trips like the cross-country expedition that we're going to be doing for the rest of 2025, because it works really well on the highways. When you're on the highway in the R1S, you have hands-off operation, hands-off, eyes on the road. And I would say the functionality of the R1S's highway assist, which only works on major highways that they have pre-mapped with, I believe it's HD video and radar. The functionality of that is comparable to where FSD on the highway was about 18 months ago. So about 18 months ago, FSD on the highway, from time to time, it would have some hiccups making certain lane changes. So if you're in a lane and you tell the highway assist to make a lane change, and then the lane that it's going to change into has a car that's maybe 3 or 4 car lengths behind you, but is coming up at a fast rate of speed, R1S Ego car will start to get over, get 1/3 to halfway over, then hesitate and crawl back. So a human driver and FSD supervised could make that lane change seamlessly, make that lane change speed up to account for the oncoming car. But R1S's lane highway assist is a little too shy. I've run into about two lane change situations like that in the 800 or so miles that we've driven in the R1S over the past 2 weeks. And but otherwise, it feels like it's on the rails. For lack of a better analogy, when FSD is driving, it really feels like a human, and you can tell how the neural networks that have trained FSD have really mimicked human driving behaviors. There are certain things that just seem natural, whereas Rivian Highway Assist is more akin to old school autopilot, which at this point I can barely remember because it's been so long since I've used old school autopilot regularly. Um, in that it feels more like a computer is driving you. When you're in Rivian Highway Assist, you really feel like you're on rails. And the Rivian Highway Assist software has no interest in navigating or making lane changes. All it wants to do is stay in its lane, stay centered, keep up with the flow of traffic in that lane. It can make lane changes if you instruct it to do so, right? But for the most part, it will not initiate a lane change on its own. It is unlike FSD supervised in that way, where FSD supervised makes lane changes on its own, tries to find its way through traffic to find what it thinks is the most optimal way. And I would say that that is where there are still some limitations with FSD supervised, because FSD supervised, its judgment calls about when it thinks the appropriate time is to make a lane change because the vehicle in front of it is slow. It seems like an impatient teenager at times. You know, you have a little bit of slowdown in your lane, and then it immediately starts looking to make a lane change, and it makes a lane change that is safe. It'll shoot the gap in ways that are impressive, but oftentimes it seems counterproductive, or it seems like it would be a wrong human behavior, in the sense that it can make a lane change that seems like rude, you know? And it also is sort of counterintuitive to the way I enjoy using full self-driving and basically a robotaxi. Because the way I see it is that when you're in a robotaxi like this, you have the freedom to do what you will with your time. So it's no longer super important that you shorten the length of the drive. Because when you're driving manually, you want to get to where you're going almost as fast as possible. And it's partly because of you want to minimize the amount of time that your human brain and cortex is exposed to the stress of commanding a 6,000 pound vehicle, 6,000 pound death machine on wheels. That's what these vehicles are, you know? And all the time that you spend driving the vehicle manually is putting like hairs of stress on you. And this is why there naturally becomes instinct to speed up, to get around traffic, weave through, get to where you're trying to go faster, because you don't want to spend any more time in the stress ball that is driving this machine. But then when you're in a robotaxi and you have full self-driving commanding the vehicle, you're not exposed to that stress. If it takes a minute longer, 2 minutes longer, 5 minutes longer for FSD to get there, because it'll drive in the slow lane, or it won't drive aggressively, or won't change lanes, that's not a big deal to me. You know, if it's a matter of getting there on time, then I'm okay with leaving 5 minutes early or whatever to get there on time, you know, because I'm not being stressed out by the experience of driving, and my time is my own. I can record vlogs like this. So that's one thing, to like loop it all the way back around. That's one thing that they should tweak in FSD's behavior, is how it decides when the car in front of it is slow and it wants to change lanes for whatever reason. But this is the biggest thing, the biggest part of the experience that I've given up by going into the R1S, and why, as far as cars go, as of, you know, a device for getting you from A to B, this Model Y is still overall superior. But what you gain in the R1S is so much more space. Like, camping in that R1S is amazing. It's such a better experience than camping here in the Model Y. I've got my chairs up, but I still have my platforms and all the frugal stuff. And I mean, I've enjoyed my time car camping in the Model Y. I've done dozens of trips, but it's a completely different experience in the R1S because there's so much room, because you got that split tailgate that gives you a different feel when you're lying down in there, and you've got that massive frunk that I pointed out. But it all gets to the fact that the R1S is the superior vehicle when it's not in motion, when you've gotten to the campsite, when you're thinking about carrying all the gear that you need to carry, because besides that massive frunk that can store like, you know, 2 12-gallon totes, and that still only takes up maybe like 70% of the space in the frunk, so you got tons of room more to edge more devices and things in, and you've got the 110 100 or 1500 watts of AC power to run things like an air fryer or a microwave if it comes down to it, all built in. I mean, sure, you can achieve that in a Model Y by getting an EcoFlow battery, but then once you have an EcoFlow battery, you're constantly playing the energy shuttle game, because your EcoFlow battery, you know, maybe it has 1 kilowatt hour, 2 kilowatt hours of power, and your ability to recharge that battery from the Model Y through the 12 volt, it's like 56 watts, maybe 100 watts. So once you've exhausted that store of energy in your EcoFlow battery, you're waiting like 10 hours, 12 hours to recharge it off the cigarette lighter in the Model Y. So it's completely different. It's like you don't have any power anxiety, right? Or I guess that would be the thing, because you're tapped directly into the R1S's battery, which is 140 kilowatt hours. It's a massive battery. So those are like the two biggest takeaways. And I think it underscores the fact that the R1S's prime use case is really limited to someone who's doing what I'm doing, I think. Or maybe if you have like a really large family, like you got 3+ kids, R1S would be a better vehicle than the Model Y. But ultimately, if you're going car camping, if you're trying to set up and live in your EV so that you can explore the countryside, the R1S is a better vehicle than the Model Y. Just know that you're making some big trade-offs with regards to autonomy. And in the context of long road trips, I made the choice that's acceptable, because the R1S Rivian Highway Assist is still going to be serviceable for 90% of the duration of driving, which is going to be on those long highways. Where you're really going to miss, or where I'm really going to miss FSD, and I think you, as someone who might, you know, acquire an R1S or switch over from a Model Y, will really miss FSD, is going to be on those long 2-lane highway drives. We experienced some of those on our trip this past weekend, going up to Acton. It was like there's little canyon roads where you got these 2-lane canyon roads, go through really scenic canyons, winding and curving. Taking those in the Model Y on FSD is such a pleasure, because you get to take in the surrounding landscape and see what's going on. Driving it manually in the R1S, that's where I missed FSD the most. For city driving, like driving manually in the city is still, I would say, better than FSD. Oftentimes, FSD takes cities really well, but it's not that big of a give up. But where FSD truly shines at this point is on those long 2-lane highways, going from different places, or going to your like final destination. So, you know, if you've got like 3 hours of like interstate, and then 20 minutes of 2-lane highway before you get to your campsite, so it's 20 minutes of 2-lane highway where FSD would really, really shine, and it's really going to be missed over, you know, Rivian Highway Assist on the I-5 or the I-15 or whatever. And the other major thing in the Rivian that has been difficult to get used to has been Alexa voice command. And it's like, you can't say the A word when you're in the Rivian, because then she wakes up and she starts yapping at you, and she doesn't understand any of the things that you're telling her to do. You ask her to navigate you to the public library, she tries to send you to the public library in Spain. You try to read to her an address, and she will stop while you're in the middle of naming your address. Like, you'll go number, street name, and then she'll look up that number and street name, but in Connecticut or in Spain. For some reason, she really likes finding things in Spain. But the Alexa voice command, voice assistant, is atrocious. Like the number of times that she has not been able to parse out where I'm trying to go or find where I'm trying to go, it's like 70%, 80% of the time. As compared to the voice command here in the Model Y, it can always intuit what I'm looking for. Even if I don't get the name of the place exactly quite right, it's really good. And I also really like the fact that voice command in the Model Y doesn't talk back to me. Like I just say what I want it to do and it does it. It shows up here on the screen. With Alexa in the R1S, you tell her, well, first, you can't push a button like you have here. Here you have a button. You push this button and then you can voice command and then it happens. In the R1S, you have to wake her up by first saying Alexa, then you have to wait for her to beep back at you, then you say what you're wanting to do, then she repeats it back at you, then you have to confirm. So interacting with Alexa takes 2-3 times longer than interacting with the voice command here in the Model Y. And maybe that's a minor nitpick, but it is a little bit grating in terms of knowing that's another thing that you're giving up. So I would say the biggest things that I'm trading off in this Model Y to get into the R1S is full self-driving, automated driving on the streets. It's a big one, but I can live with it in terms of I get a far better camping vehicle and then this voice command. So what I'm really hoping, because the R1S, it looks like it's going to be our vehicle for the long run, because we chose it for the fact that it's an excellent camping vehicle for this long road trip and van life adventure. And it can tow 7,700 pounds, so we'll be able to tow the Lightship RV that we're planning to get next year. So it covers those two bases. Those are two things that we couldn't do with the Model Y for sure, and we can only do one of those things with the Cybertruck. Cybertruck is not a very good car camping vehicle. I mean, I suppose it'd be good for overlanding. It'd be comparable for overlanding, for tent camping, for being in a pickup, like a pickup shell camper, but that's a completely different experience from camping inside of the cabin of a large SUV. You can't just extract yourself from the front seat and go directly into your beddings in the back. It becomes a lot more awkward for stealth camping in urban settings. Those are the major trade-offs if you were to go to a Cybertruck, and ultimately that's why we chose to go with the R1S instead of the Cybertruck. But the prospect of the software tools that are in this car one day getting into the R1S, I mean, can you bet on it happening? Hard to say. I think that full self-driving is such a game-changing technology, is so important and is so safe that at some point in the not too distant future, maybe within 5 years, it will be technologically mandated that all cars have this technology. At which point it would be pretty seamless for that technology to go into the R1S, because the R1S has all of the necessary equipment. It has really powerful AI chip inside of it, and it has a bunch of cameras. The cameras in the R1S are also a nice upgrade from the camera system here in the Model Y, which is ironic because it goes to show that solving autonomy is not about the sensor suite. It's not about radar, it's not about LiDAR, it's about the neural network that commands the car being smart enough to do what it can with its camera inputs. Because the R1S has, I mean, we've got these 3 cameras here, back, side repeaters, and you've got 2 cameras in the door pillar here, and then we got cameras up here looking forward. The R1S has those, plus additional cameras that I think are in the rear repeater, because when you look at the cameras in the R1S, you can see everything around the car. And it has a front bumper camera that the new Model Ys have, but this Model Y does not. And that front bumper camera is like really handy for when you're coming into park in a really close parking space. Really nice. But despite having more cameras than this Model Y has the software to do what the R1S can't yet. So I'm sort of making that bet, or I'm hoping that in the future, the R1S, Rivian will get a licensing agreement with Tesla, or maybe me as the owner personally will be able to license the software from Tesla so that the R1S can get this sort of capability. But for the short term, medium term, next 18, 24 months, I'm okay with making this trade-off of piloting the R1S manually, because all of the upside that I get when the R1S is parked is just, that's what I need. That's my use case. I need a better camping vehicle. I need a better experience while I'm car camping. I need the 110 outlets. I need to be able to live out of my vehicle with my wife. And as a solo traveler, living in a Model Y could work really well. And there are a lot of other travelers out there whose content you can see who are doing it really well. But for a couple, living in a Model Y could be really challenging. Also, the the suspension, the adaptive suspension in the R1S is super nice as well. Anyways, that's all I got for you folks. Thanks for watching. Remember, if I added some value to your day, or if you got anything out of this and you think I earned it, like and subscribe. West Coast.